paid in 3 installments in the year, but it's paid to you directly. So again, if we use the undergraduate example as a comparison, where your tuition fee loan in the past would have been paid directly to the university, all the loan is paid directly to you, and from that you have to pay your contributions towards your tuition fee and your living costs. Okay, so just a reminder that very different type of funding. It doesn't necessarily cover all tuition fees. It's a contribution towards that. So just be aware of what the funding is for UK students. Now, a few exceptions to that rule are the NHS programs. So that's your pre-registration nursing, midwifery, and allied health professional programs such as physiotherapy, etc. On those programs, you would actually receive the standard undergraduate package of support from Student Finance England. So that would be exactly the same as what you would receive if you were doing an undergraduate program. So you get your tuition fee loan, you get a maintenance loan for living costs, and you get your extra funding if necessary or appropriate to you, which is childcare grant, parents' learning allowance, adult dependence grant, etc. It's available even if you've had previous undergraduate funding, but it's not available if you're already registered in the profession. So if you're coming back to university to do a nursing degree, if you're already a registered nurse or something like that, or a midwifery degree, then you're not eligible. But that's fairly uncommon. Most people obviously do it when they don't have the registration in that particular area. So yes, if you're thinking of coming back to university and doing one of our pre-registration NHS professional programs, which are at master's or postgraduate level, then you'd find yourself that your funding is very much the same as it was when you were an undergraduate student. And that extends to funding such as the NHS training grant and dual travel and accommodation expenses for when you're on placement. Exactly the same as UG, if that's not aware of that. All this funding available to students doing our NHS programs, even if it is at postgraduate level. Again, parental support available if you're a student parent. You're eligible for, this is for NHS programs only, I should say. This goes back to the comparison with the undergraduate package of support that's available. You would receive £2,000 per year available to students who have parental responsibility for a child. And if in unforeseen hardship, students can receive the NHS Exceptional Support Fund based on an application basis. So there is funding if you are coming back to university to do a master's program in one of our allied healthcare professional programs, or nursing or midwifery or anything along those lines, then the support, as we said, is exactly the same as you would expect to receive if you were an undergraduate student. And that is exactly the same for social work. You get, sorry, it's not quite the same. You get a contribution towards your tuition fees for social work for academic year. You get a social work bursary of £3,362.50. Again, a contribution towards your placement, travel costs, and extra support, which we've already mentioned on some things like childcare grant, parent learning allowance, adult dependence grant. Each university has a capped number of places. But if you're notified that you've not been awarded the social work bursary, you can apply for the PG Masters loan instead. So you can't get both in that element. Again, if someone wants to do a social work Masters and it's a bit unsure, then we can have a further chat afterwards or ask some questions. But that's the social work, and then we go on to teacher training, which is our PGCE programs. And the funding packages for those are very much the same as they would have been at undergraduate level. So similar to the nursing programs, you can get your main package of support from Student Finance England, tuition fee loans, maintenance loan, and then the extra funding if applicable. Doctoral programs, there's a standalone postgraduate doctoral loan, and that's a maximum of £28,673 for the entire course. So that depends how long your doctorate lasts. You can get up to that. And it's non-means tested, and it's divided equally across each year of your course and paid in 3 installments. So if you're looking to do a doctorate, a PhD, or something similar, then that would be the loan that you would be entitled to receive, but for your entire length of your PhD, not just the first year, so not year by year. So that's your entire, what you could entirely borrow. And again, students who this may be applicable to the disabled students allowance, so you can support to cover the study related costs you might have because of a mental health problem or long-term illness. And that is not means tested. It does not need to be paid back, so it's not a loan, it's an allowance, but you must be eligible to qualify for student finance from Student Finance England. So other sources of funding, Northumbria Funding itself. So if you're currently a student with us at undergraduate level and are thinking about doing a master's with us, you would automatically receive a 20% alumni discount, and that's on your tuition fees. So for all students who've previously studied at Northumbria, they are our alumni, and as a result, they receive a 20% deduction in their tuition for doing a master's with us or a postgraduate program. There's a Vice Chancellor Scholarship, which is £3,000 discount for extraordinary students joining us on a full-time master's in September. So again, that's a competitive application process, but if you feel like you meet the criteria, it might be something worth thinking about. Master Your Future Scholarship is a 50% tuition fee reduction up to 50 students. And then on other things, it depends on exactly your type of sort of background. So sports scholarships, some course specific scholarships, and for British Muslims, it's the Aziz Foundation scholarships who wish to study. So plenty out there. A range of studentships also available for PhD programs, PG research degrees, and some also provide an annual stipend for living costs. So there are some potential help from the university itself, particularly if you're an alumni. That's an automatic discount you will receive on tuition. But you can see as well, there are a couple of more competitive scholarship schemes, which is obviously very worth trying to enter. If you don't enter, you have no chance of getting them, but there's no guarantee, but it's always worth a go, because if you've got a good story to tell and a good reason to be qualified for one of these scholarships, then it's certainly worth making inquiries. Then we move on to other sources of funding. Part-time employment sounds very obvious. Many of our master's students have to work alongside doing their masters, purely as it's not sustainable to continue to study with those tuition fees and the costs associated with it without bringing in some form of extra income. So our Graduate Futures team can offer guidance and support with seeking employment. And if you ever come to one of our open days, they'll be there, which you can talk to them about. But you can contact them. I'm sure Erin will be able to put that information in the chat for our Graduate Futures team. Many students come to us who are sponsored by their employer. So they've got a job and go away and want to do a master's, and often the employer will sponsor that. Family contribution, again, like we always said at UG level, if you can have a chat with your family about could they contribute anything to your master's, and of course savings. So there's just obviously some fairly practical ideas, and there might be some, it might not be a completely exhaustive list, but those are the sort of ideas that we would potentially suggest to students who were struggling with funding. If you manage your time properly, there probably should be time to work alongside of the master's program, so that's always an option. But obviously, we'd always make sure that it didn't impact on your studies. And then on top of that, we've got charities, foundations, and trusts, studentships, crowdfunding. A lot of people have crowdfunded their masters, or private loans, potentially through banks. All I would say on that is do your research carefully, because we don't certainly want you to end up in the wrong loan company and then the wrong debt. So make sure if you borrow a private loan to pay for this, make sure you know exactly what it is you're borrowing and exactly how much it is you're borrowing and when and how you have to pay this back. So yes, any advice on that, we're more than happy to help. And then for students who are on universal credit, it could be able to continue if you're responsible for a child, if you live with your partner and they're eligible for universal credit, or if you're disabled or have a limited capacity to work before starting your own course and are getting one of those 5 benefits that I've listed below, which is the PIP, the Personal Independence Payment, the DLA, the Child Discipline Payment in Scotland, the Attendance Allowance, and the Armed Forces Independence Payment. Budgeting. What I would say is very important, especially on different loans sort of set up to what you did at undergraduate level. You must calculate how much income you need to cover your course fees and living costs. And then obviously your costs will be different for everyone. It'll depend on the program of study, the accommodation choice, the lifestyle and hobbies, and any other financial commitments. So what I would recommend, which I was talking to a student about today, is try and split it into a month-by-month basis. Figure out, right, how much money have I got? How much is it going to cost me on a month-by-month basis to be able to pay for the things that I need to, being the operative word. And then if after that, calculate what you think you're roughly going to have left at the end of the month to spend money on that you enjoy doing, or whatever your hobbies and what have you, your lifestyle, and make sure you stick within that. So that's the way I would always recommend to students they organise their budget. But any student who was on this call who feels like they might need a little bit more support around that, then they're very welcome to leave their message with Joseph or Erin, and I will contact them when we return. Full-time students can apply for a council tax exemption, so that's good. The NHS low income scheme helps with prescription and dental costs. I would always recommend to students, if they do arrive at the university with pre-existing debt, they'll need to reduce their payments of debt due to a drop in income. And you can contact the charity Step Change, which we fully endorse, for free advice to get your finances on track if you do come to us with some debt. Just want to mention a couple more things. Black Bullion, which is a financial wellbeing platform which helps you develop your money skills, confidence, and maximize opportunities. I would recommend that you sign up to that as soon as you can. You don't have to be an Northumbria student to do so. You can just sign up, and then when you do, if you hopefully do become a Northumbria student, you can add your information in later, and it links you to us. But very good source of advice for not to be honest, not just for students, for all the population. Some of the things that are in there are very, very useful. It gives you good tips on budgeting, good tips on spending money, saving money, eating, cooking, all these sort of things. So there's a lot in there to learn, a lot that you can do. So I would recommend students sign up for that. I can't remember exactly how much it is. I want to say £5 per month, but might be wrong.